The news emerging from a quiet residential neighborhood in suburban Virginia has sent shockwaves through federal law enforcement agencies and the halls of Congress. After months of uncertainty, forensic analysts have released definitive DNA results collected from the former residence of Nancy Guthrie. What had long been treated as a high-stakes missing persons case, one already shadowed by potential national security implications, has now evolved into something far more complex and deeply unsettling. The biological samples recovered from the primary bedroom and a concealed storage space in the basement have been conclusively matched not only to Guthrie herself, but also to an unidentified third party whose genetic profile is flagged within a restricted federal database. That single confirmation transforms the investigation from a localized disappearance into a central junction of a much larger inquiry involving illicit financial networks, covert operations, and deliberate attempts to destabilize domestic markets. At dawn in Washington, the Department of Justice issued a brief but consequential statement, confirming that the DNA evidence indicates forced entry and signs of a struggle, directly contradicting earlier official suggestions that Guthrie may have left voluntarily due to personal stress. According to sources close to the investigation, the situation on the ground reflects a highly coordinated and professional extraction, seemingly designed to obtain sensitive intelligence related to upcoming trade negotiations. Nancy Guthrie was not simply another legislative staffer. She served as a critical bridge between the Treasury Department and the congressional committees navigating the 2026 fiscal cliff. She was deeply embedded in the mechanics of the American recovery strategy at a time when the dollar faces unprecedented pressure from a coalition of emerging digital economies. Her home, once presumed secure, is now a crime scene symbolizing the exposed seams within American bureaucratic infrastructure. The presence of foreign DNA suggests the perpetrators possessed inside knowledge of her movements and the security protocols of her gated community. What once resembled a kidnapping now carries the hallmarks of potential state-sponsored espionage. To understand the full weight of these findings, one must consider the fragile economic environment of early 2026. Guthrie was the lead architect of legislation intended to repatriate billions in offshore capital. Analysts now suspect her disappearance may have been strategically timed to derail the final vote on that bill, a vote that could influence the dollar's stability for the next decade. When forensic teams identified traces of a synthetic polymer commonly used in high-grade industrial gloves alongside the DNA samples, the FBI concluded they were not dealing with opportunistic criminals, but a trained and disciplined professional unit. The markets reacted immediately. Futures dipped as investors confronted the possibility that sensitive economic planning had been compromised. Compounding the tension is the White House's silence regarding the identity of the second DNA match. That silence has fueled speculation that the individual may have ties to a foreign diplomatic mission, creating a legal and diplomatic minefield. Legal experts have pointed to the Strategic Intelligence Act of 2025, which allows the government to bypass certain privacy safeguards when a disappearance threatens national economic stability. This is the first time the statute has been invoked at this level of visibility. Behind closed doors, a power struggle is unfolding. The FBI is pressing for swift arrests. The State Department, meanwhile, fears that publicly indicting a foreign national could collapse ongoing Pacific trade negotiations. Officially, the government expresses hope for Guthrie's safe return. Unofficially, strategic conversations revolve around containment: financial, diplomatic, and political. The DNA evidence has also revealed links to a shadow network that has operated for years at the blurred intersection of lobbying, finance, and public service. The hidden consequences of this case extend far beyond Virginia. If Guthrie was targeted because of her role in the 2026 Economic Recovery Plan, it sets a chilling precedent for the safety of non-elected policymakers across the country. This is no longer merely a missing persons case. It is a test of the structural resilience of the American state. The contrast between sterile forensic lab reports and the emotional pleas of the Guthrie family highlights a widening divide in public trust. While her family asks for normalcy, federal agencies prepare for the possibility of a prolonged geopolitical confrontation. The DNA results represent the first concrete proof that the boundaries between private life and international conflict have dissolved. As the fiscal quarter closes, pressure intensifies. Law enforcement has expanded the search to private airfields and transit hubs after receiving intelligence suggesting the suspect linked to the DNA profile may still be within the continental United States. Yet the evidence meant to provide clarity has instead opened a Pandora's box of deeper questions about who truly holds leverage in the digital age. The narrative has shifted from a simple abduction to a sobering realization. The most valuable commodity in the modern world is not oil or gold, but specialized economic intelligence. International implications are already surfacing. Naval activity has increased in contested waters. Cybersecurity protocols across federal agencies have tightened. If the DNA profile belongs to a known operative of a rival power, the administration will be forced to choose between overt confrontation or a quiet resolution that risks appearing weak. In Guthrie's neighborhood, private security presence has surged, a microcosm of a broader national drift toward fortification. The DNA recovered from her home is more than forensic evidence. It is a warning that domestic security and global geopolitics are now inseparable. The investigation has evolved into a digital manhunt. Federal agencies are tracing financial movements associated with the second genetic profile, which has been linked to shell companies designed to evade traditional banking oversight. In response, the Treasury Department has invoked emergency powers under the 2026 Financial Integrity Act to freeze offshore accounts suspected of funding the operation. That move risks triggering volatility in international bond markets as foreign investors fear broader capital restrictions. Further forensic analysis revealed a rare synthetic lubricant on a secondary DNA sample, a substance manufactured by only 3 companies worldwide, each a primary contractor for foreign military logistics. This discovery reinforces the conclusion that this was a professional extraction, not a random act of violence. Analysts have begun referring to the case as an instance of kinetic economic warfare, the physical removal of policy architects to influence national recovery strategy. Political fallout is intensifying. Opposition lawmakers are questioning why someone with Guthrie's level of clearance lacked a full-time security detail. Infrastructure projects tied to her finalized tax codes have stalled. Power dynamics in Washington are shifting as factions attempt to fill the vacuum her absence created. Globally, Western intelligence agencies are quietly coordinating to track the suspect's DNA footprint across continents. The profile has been linked to 3 unsolved disappearances in Europe and Asia over the past decade, suggesting a pattern of targeted disruption that has now reached American soil. Meanwhile, encrypted files were accessed from Guthrie's home computer minutes after the struggle. DNA found on the keyboard matches the intruder, confirming that the objective was both the person and the data she possessed. A legal battle is now emerging over access to her encrypted backups, her family, or the intelligence community. Search has since shifted toward logistics corridors in the Midwest after maintenance logs connected the same synthetic lubricant to a private cargo flight departing near Indianapolis hours after a suspicious vehicle was spotted near her residence. Federal subpoenas for private shipping logs have triggered resistance from corporate attorneys citing trade secrecy protections. At the Great Lakes, a dramatic standoff has formed. A major international shipping conglomerate operating an automated facility has threatened to halt transatlantic freight if federal agents proceed with the raid. Forensic teams working in mobile units nearby confirmed a biological sample recovered at a rest stop matches the suspect with 99% certainty, indicating the operative doubled back and is using the logistics network as cover. To search a facility processing millions of packages daily would require a full regional shutdown, a move that could trigger manufacturing slowdowns and ripple through the already fragile 2026 economy. The National Security Council is debating whether to deploy advanced thermal imaging and AI-driven gate analysis, aware that doing so could establish dangerous international precedents. As a midnight deadline approaches, the Great Lakes standoff has become symbolic. If a senior strategist can be removed from her home and concealed within the nation's own infrastructure, then the concept of domestic security requires redefinition. Allied intelligence services are on heightened alert, concerned that the standoff may be a diversion. The suspect's DNA profile now circulates through global databases like a digital specter haunting major ports. This is no longer simply about Nancy Guthrie. It marks the beginning of an era in which corporate power, state actors, economic leverage, and individual lives are permanently intertwined. Every hour of delay at the Great Lakes weakens the American position at the negotiating table. The world is watching to see whether the largest economy on Earth can secure its own architects of policy. The forensic evidence was only the first fracture in a carefully maintained illusion of stability. What unfolds next may redefine the legal boundaries of economic warfare, sovereignty, and personal security for the remainder of the decade.